June 2015. Summer had arrived along the North Carolina coast. Families were crossing the bridges towards Oak Island, Ocean Isle Beach, Topsail Island, and the Outer Banks, carrying coolers, beach chairs, and boards strapped to the roof of their cars. Along more than 300 miles of coastline, the season was beginning the way it always did. Children ran to the surf before their parents had finished putting up their umbrellas. Fishermen stood at the end of wooden piers. Lifeguards watched from raised chairs. Small waves broke across the sandbars. And beyond them, the Atlantic stretched towards an empty horizon. The water was already warm. Schools of fish were moving along the shoreline, and beneath the surface, sharks followed routes they had traveled for thousands of years. Most people never saw them. That was normal. Sharks had always lived along the Carolina coast. Encounters with people and sharks were rare. Serious injuries were rarer still. For millions of visitors, the possibility of being bitten existed somewhere between lightning strikes and fears created by movies. It just really didn't happen. But then, on June 11th, a girl was injured in the water at Ocean Isle Beach. It was frightening, but it appeared to be isolated. Days later, on a crowded afternoon at Oak Island, emergency crews were called. Before they'd even finished responding to that, a second call came in. Another swimmer had been attacked nearby. 2 incidents occurred less than 90 minutes apart. Within hours, helicopters were flying over the coastline. Television crews were arriving. Witnesses were describing what they had seen, while officials tried to determine whether the same animal might still be somewhere beyond the surf. For a few days, everyone waited. Then someone else was bitten. 2 days after that, another man was attacked in the Outer Banks, and it just kept coming and coming. By the beginning of July, North Carolina had become the center of a national story. Reporters stood on the beach asking whether it was safe to swim. Scientists were trying to study water temperatures, rainfall, bait fish, and shark migration. Tourism officials faced questions that sounded as if they'd been taken from a movie. Should the beaches be closed? Were more sharks moving toward shore? Was one animal responsible? And why was this happening now? Why were there so many attacks? By the end of the year, North Carolina would record 8 confirmed shark bites. No one knew when the next attack would come. This was out of the ordinary. And everyone in the public was panicking. I think we're gonna need a bigger boat. Welcome to the Southern Blueprint Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Swift, and this week, we're doing something a little different. It's Shark Week, my friends, and I've got to say, I am a massive shark nerd. I love Shark Week. So I wanted to do an episode about sharks and of course, most of the attention when we talk about sharks goes towards the great whites in California, tiger sharks in Hawaii, or some dramatic encounter in distant oceans. But the South has plenty of shark stories of its own. And for several weeks during the summer of 2015, that story belonged to North Carolina. It was a crazy summer. And I've done a social media post about shark attacks before. You can find it on YouTube or Instagram, where I feel like there's this over-exaggeration of shark attacks. When you actually look at the numbers, even in the summer, that was out of the ordinary, and I can't wait to get into it. But when you actually look at the number, it's actually very small. And we'll talk about kind of maybe why that is in this show. But before we get into the episode, I just want to take a moment to thank everybody for tuning in. And if you could, leave a review or a comment and send this to a friend and tell somebody about the show. It really helps keep this thing going, and it really helps the show grow. And if you want to support the show directly, join our Patreon and become a member of the Hidden Pine Lodge. That's what we call it. It's kind of like the private club of the Southern Blueprint. Membership is only $4 a month, and that gets you access to additional content, and it also gets you access to our community Discord. That is where we continue the conversations from the podcast and talk about Southern history, true crime, folklore, travel, books, bourbon, birds, hiking, fishing, and everything else that we cover through the Southern Blueprint. It's also where we have our book club and our bird club. We have a lot going on, and like I said, it's only $4 a month. And even if you don't want to join Discord, it's just, if you love the show, it's a great way to support what we're doing here and keep this thing going. You can join the Hidden Pine Lodge through the Patreon link, and I'll put that in the episode description notes. But I'm excited about this episode. Let's return to the summer of 2015 and try to figure out why so many people that particular summer were getting attacked by sharks. North Carolina's coastline stretches for more than 300 miles and includes communities such as Sunset Beach, Ocean Isle Beach, Oak Island, Ballhead Island, and Riceville Beach. Farther north is Topsail Island and the Crystal Coast. Beyond Cape Lookout, you have the Outer Banks, which extends into the Atlantic, and these long, fragile chain of barrier islands that include places like Hatteras, Avon, Waves, Salvo, and Ocracoke. Now, these waters are highly productive. Near Cape Hatteras, major currents and weather systems meet. The shape of the coastline pushes the Outer Banks far into the ocean, creating one of the most dynamic marine environments in the eastern United States. It's a natural corridor for fish, and wherever prey gathers, predators follow. North Carolina waters are home to many species of sharks. Some remain offshore, others regularly they enter the surf zone, the sound, the estuaries, and river mouths, which is actually kind of frightening to think about that sharks can go into rivers, but some can. The presence of these animals, it's not an invasion. It's part of the coastal environment, and most of the time, our coexistence produces no conflict. Millions of people visit North Carolina beaches. They swim, they surf, they paddle, they fish, and they wade in the ocean. Sharks may pass near them without ever being seen. Even during years when several bites are recorded, the overwhelming majority of beach visitors never encounter a shark at all. Before 2015, North Carolina generally recorded only a small number of unprovoked shark bites each year. The state had 4 confirmed bites in 2014. It had only 1 in 2013 and 2 in 2012. State information distributed during the 2015 season said North Carolina had averaged approximately 2.4 shark bite incidents per year during the previous 15 years. Think about that for a second. Think about the millions of people that get in the water during the year. 2.4 shark bites doesn't seem all that bad. But then came the summer of 2015. The International Shark Attack File would eventually confirm 8 unprovoked bites in North Carolina that year alone, which represented a sharp departure from its normal pattern. Again, usually averaging 2.4. In 2015, there were 8. And most disturbing than the annual total was the timing of these attacks. And again, you might hear me say unprovoked. That is, you're in the water, you're not really doing anything, you have no idea sharks are there, and you get attacked. Now, there are other bites that occur, when you're trying to fish for sharks. When you're in a situation where you know where sharks are, those numbers don't account for this. We're talking about unconfirmed, or unprovoked, I should say, shark attacks. Beginning on June 11th, incidents started to occur in rapid succession. Some victims suffered superficial wounds, others were nearly killed. The bites moved northward along the coast from Brunswick County to Pender County and then into the Outer Banks. Each incident could be explained as a rare event, like a one-off situation, but together, it really started to look like a pattern. The first incident in the concentrated summer cluster occurred on June 11th at Ocean Isle Beach. Ocean Isle Beach is beautiful, by the way. It was just before 12:45. A 13-year-old girl was in the water boogie boarding. The water was calm. Families were scattered along the beach. Children played in the waves, and nothing appeared out of the ordinary. Then, without warning, the girl suddenly began screaming. Witness Jada Burnett had been in the water only moments earlier. She later recalled, "We were just in the water boogie boarding, and I was getting out. Then the girl started yelling, 'Shark!' and her foot was bleeding, and she was holding the boogie board. The shark had bitten the girl's right foot before also biting into her boogie board. Witnesses estimated the shark was approximately 4 foot long. Photographs taken afterwards showed a large, unmistakable bite mark in the foam boogie board, an image that quickly spread through local news reports. The injuries were luckily relatively minor, especially compared with what would happen 3 days later. She was treated, and the episode might have remained a brief local report if the season had continued normally. At that point, there was no reason to believe North Carolina was entering an unusual period. The girl survived. Her injuries were not life-threatening. The beach remained open. Like I said, 3 days later, approximately 20 miles up Brunswick County coast, the situation changed completely. Oak Island is separated from the mainland by the intercoastal waterway and connected by bridges to communities around Southport. Southport is actually where some movies have been made. Riceville Beach, Southport, that area. I think I Know What You Did Last Summer was filmed in Southport. Anyway, the island faces south rather than directly east, giving its shoreline a different orientation from much of the North Carolina coast. Again, beautiful place. But on June 14th, The area around the Ocean Crest Pier was busy. Fishing activity near a crowded swimming beach does not automatically produce a shark bite or shark activity, but it can place several elements of the coastal food chain in the same area. Bait, hooked fish, discarded remains, and naturally occurring schools of prey can attract larger fish. Sharks may follow those fish towards the shore. For me, I've lived at the beach. I surfed a lot. And when I go to the beach, I never, ever swim near a pier. That's just me personally. But anyway, at approximately 4:40 p.m. that afternoon, a 12-year-old girl, Kirsten Yao, was standing in waist-deep water near the pier, and she was attacked. She was from Asheboro, North Carolina, and come to the coast with her family. The bite caused severe trauma to her left arm and leg. Witnesses did not describe a long struggle. Like most shark bite incidents, it happened quickly. A moment of ordinary activity became a medical emergency before the people nearby understood what they were even seeing. Beachgoers carried Kirsten from the water. The bleeding was immediate and dangerous. Those who reached her first had no hospital equipment, but they did what emergency medicine requires after a catastrophic limb injury, and they applied pressure and improvised tourniquets. The people surrounding Kirsten also spoke to her, asking her questions, trying to keep her conscious. Emergency medical crews arrived and arranged an airlift to Wilmington. At New Hanover Regional Medical Center, surgeons treated the leg injury and amputated her damaged arm below the elbow. Officials began clearing the water and gathering information. Then, at approximately 5:50 p.m., basically an hour later, a second emergency call came in. 16-year-old Hunter Teschel of Colorado Springs was visiting Oak Island with family and had gone into the surf with his cousin. He later recalled standing in waist-deep water, playing in the waves, when suddenly he felt something brush against his leg. At first he thought simply a large fish. Then he felt it again. Moments later, the shark struck. Hunter would later describe the whole ordeal from his hospital bed. He said that he didn't see it coming, and he felt that it hit his left leg, and then it kind of hit his arm, and before he knew it, and the first time he actually saw the shark, it was literally biting up his left arm. He instinctively swung at the shark with his right hand, and the shark released him. And with the help of his cousin, Hunter made it back to shore. This detail would later become part of the scientific discussion and broader discussion around shark attacks. A predatory animal that would have considered Hunter normal prey might have continued attacking or attempted to literally eat Hunter. Instead, the shark delivered, yes, a catastrophic bite, but it then departed. And like I said, Hunter's cousin helped him get from the water, got him on shore. Bystanders applied a tourniquet and, again, kept him conscious until emergency responders arrived. He was then flown to New Hanover Regional Medical Center, arriving while the hospital was already responding to Kirsten's injuries. As news of the attacks spread, one question dominated coverage. Had the same shark attacked both teenagers? The locations were close enough and the attacks near enough in time to make the theory possible. Witnesses and experts all speculated about what type of shark it was, bull shark or a tiger shark. Some accounts describe sharks measuring 6 to 7 feet. There were reports of large sharks seen in the area, but no one shark was captured and conclusively matched to both attacks. No reliable forensics method identified the species responsible or anything like that. Wound patterns can sometimes suggest maybe the size or type of the shark, but they rarely establish it being like one shark in particular. Oak Island Mayor Betty Wallace said she could not remember another shark attack occurring there. The rarity of the event made the second attack even more difficult to comprehend. Despite the attacks, Oak Island was not closed for an extended period. Unlike a hurricane or maybe like a bacterial contamination, a shark cannot be confined to one section of the beach, right? It's a wild animal in the ocean. It may move miles within a matter of hours, making closures difficult to enforce or justify. Local officials also faced another reality. Summer tourism is the economic lifeblood of North Carolina's coastal communities. Every decision, especially one like closing a beach, carried heavy consequences. Closing the beach could send thousands of visitors home, while leaving them open meant, kind of accepting like, you might get bit by a shark. I don't know. It's highly unlikely, but we've had 2 attacks kind of back to back. But again, likelihood is very low, but we're not going to close the beaches. It was a dilemma that felt strikingly familiar to anyone who had seen the movie Jaws. And by the next morning after those attacks, that comparison to Jaws was everywhere. The Oak Island attacks had the structure of a national news event. I feel like anytime there's a shark attack, of course it makes the local news, people are talking about it, but when there starts to be multiple attacks, that's when the national news picks it up. It's just enticing, right? It's just one of those types of stories, because of the movie Jaws, I feel like, is really blown out of proportion. At least that's my take on it. But there were 2 young victims, the same beach community, approximately an hour or 90 minutes apart, life-changing injuries, witnesses describing blood in the water, helicopter evacuations, uncertainty about whether the same shark had attacked twice. Again, kind of goes back to Jaws. Television networks sent reporters to Brunswick County. Cameras started showing up at the beach, Ocean Crest Pier, and swimmers were standing near their shoreline. Marine biologists appeared in interviews. They were on news programs. They started displaying maps and, trying to figure out where the shark might be. The word frenzy appeared a lot in the news. Some of that reaction was, I guess, understandable. Again, 2 young people had suffered, really bad injuries, amputations. Parents watching from, their TVs, about to go on vacation or maybe already at the beach, they can imagine themselves getting attacked or having their child attacked. It's definitely something crazy to think about. And again, the news being the news, they exaggerate a lot of things. The shark was not presented simply as a wild animal involved in a rare encounter. It became an unseen threat beneath the surface. Reporters discussed whether it might strike again. Viewers watched, aerial footage, searching for dark shapes in the water. Every shark sighting along the East Coast became potentially connected to the story. The coverage was driven by the same element that make shark stories unusually compelling. A shark is large enough to kill a person. It moves through an environment where people cannot really see clearly or escape quickly. The attack is physical and fierce and quick. And the public already understands the story because popular culture has taught people what a shark attack is supposed to look like. Again, I keep referencing Jaws. I'm making this show because of Shark Week. You see sharks on the Discovery Channel. You see sharks that can jump out of water and do all these crazy things. They look menacing. They have sharp teeth. And in the summer of 2015, I remember it personally, watching the news and seeing all this, and I love the beach, and even I was thinking, like, holy crap, like, what is going on? Steven Spielberg's film adaptation of the novel Jaws opened in the U.S. on June 20th, 1975. The story takes place in the fictional resort community of Amity Island. Now, the movie did not invent fear of sharks per se. Stories of man-eating sharks existed long before 1975. But Jaws gave that fear of sharks a permanent visual language. The audience saw the ocean from the shark's perspective, which is truly terrifying. John Williams' music announced the shark before it appeared, also terrifying. Everybody knows the Jaws music. During the filming, the mechanical shark was actually kept off screen during filming because it malfunctioned a lot, forcing Spielberg to suggest the predator through camera movement, sound, and reaction. The technical problem, to me, ended up making the movie more frightening. Viewers were encouraged to imagine what was beneath the water, not what they actually could see, which again to me is even more terrifying. It's the unknown. It's what you can't see. And the movie was also showing the perspective from the shark's perspective. A dark shape became a fin. A bump against the leg became an approaching predator. The sight of an empty ocean could be more frightening than the sight of a shark because the animal might be anywhere. If you see a fin, yes, you know where the shark is. But an empty ocean with John Williams' music in the background, it's more terrifying. Now, the author of the book Jaws, he later became active in marine conservation. As he learned more about sharks, he acknowledged that the animal he created in the story did not really reflect normal shark behavior. He spent part of his later career advocating for ocean protection and trying to really correct public misconceptions about sharks. Steven Spielberg also spoke about the film's kind of harmful effect on shark populations and public attitudes. It would be too simple to blame one movie, really, for the global decline of sharks. Commercial fishing, demand for fins and meat, slow reproduction, and weak international protections are far more the direct cause of shark hunting. But Jaws shaped the emotional climate in which those losses occurred. People love or fear sharks. I mean, again, we have Shark Week. It's one of the reasons why I'm making this episode. Really for two things. One, just because I love sharks. I love the movie Jaws. But also, two, I want to highlight this kind of interesting summer, but also highlight, how unlikely it is to actually be attacked by a shark. It's really fascinating. But when the Oak Island attacks happened in 2015, those two attacks very close in time, reporters and witnesses reached for the movie Jaws because it provided the closest, I guess, cultural reference. Brenda Bowser's comparison was not an attempt to sensationalize what she had seen. She had witnessed a child being carried from bloody water. The scene generally resembled something America had been taught to associated with cinematic horror. She was basically seeing a Jaws movie being played out. But the difference is Kirsten Yao and Hunter these were real people. Their injuries were not entertainment. And the sharks in the Atlantic were not following a screenplay. But even after the two attacks in Oak Island and all of the news publicity, 10 days later, things got worse. There was another child that was bitten. On June 24th, around 12:25, an 8-year-old boy named Brady Noyes was swimming in knee-deep water at Surf City on Topsail Island. The incident occurred in the 700 block of South Shore Drive, several blocks from the fishing pier. He was facing the beach, about 20 yards away from other children when the shark approached from behind. He never saw the shark. He simply screamed after being bitten. Police described the wounds as a bite mark on the top of the foot and a puncture wound to the heel. The bite measured roughly 7 inches across, suggesting a relatively small shark. The boy suffered superficial injuries to his lower leg and foot. Surf City Police and Pender County emergency personnel treated him at the scene. His wounds were not, luckily, considered serious. The physical outcome was very different from the Oak Island attacks, but the psychological effect was larger than the injuries itself. This was now the 4th confirmed shark bite reported within approximately 2 weeks. The incident also challenged one of the public's most common assumptions about shark safety, that a swimmer is safe as long as they are in water that's shallow. But this boy had been in knee-deep water. Some small coastal sharks can enter the surf zone while pursuing fish. A shark does not need several feet of water to pass near a person's leg. Breaking waves, sediment, and turbulence can also make the surf difficult for both people and the sharks to see. Surf City increased beach patrols but did not issue a broad swimming prohibition. They didn't cancel anything. Town manager Larry Bergman explained that officials were not planning to clear the water based on the one minor incident or even because of the other attacks. And that response drew criticism from some people who believed the growing number of bites required stronger action. But officials still faced the same problem. There was no identifiable shark to track. No defined area, really, where danger began and ended. There was no crazy scientific basis for predicting where the next shark bite might occur. And no indication that the shark involved at Surf City remained nearby. It's a shark. It's the ocean. The next serious encounter would occur more than 100 miles to the north. 2 days later, on the morning of June 26, another emergency call came from the North Carolina coast. This time, It was Avon on Hatteras Island in the Outer Banks. 47-year-old Patrick Thornton of the Charlotte area had been vacationing with his family, spending the week on the beach, just as thousands of other visitors were doing that summer. Shortly before noon, Thornton was swimming with his children about a mile north of the Avon fishing pier in waist-deep water. Despite the recent attacks farther south, nothing seemed unusual. Then he felt a sudden tug on his right foot. At first, Thornton thought a crab had grabbed him, which is also terrifying. It's scary, man, when something touches you in the ocean, right? But he felt a sudden tug, and at first he thought it was a crab. Within seconds, he realized something much larger was in the water. He said, "It took a pretty big chunk out of my right leg, so I started punching the shark." The shark released him briefly before attacking again. This time, it bit him in the back. Around him, family members scrambled towards the shore. Thornton's niece and nephew escaped the water, but his young son Jack froze in place. Rather than continue towards the beach himself, Thornton turned back. He said, "I ran over and grabbed Jack, and as I was bringing him to the shore, the shark came and bit me again in the back. And this time he bit me really, really hard." Again, Thornton punched the shark, and it finally let go. He made it back to the shore with deep wounds to his right leg, a puncture wound across his lower back. National Park Service rangers, Hatteras Island rescue personnel, and paramedics responded quickly, treating him on the beach before he was transported by ambulance and then airlifted to the Norfolk General Hospital in Virginia. Unlike some of the other earlier victims, Patrick was able to really go into detail to describe his encounter. He had remained conscious through the whole entire attack. He had fought back repeatedly. This wasn't like a quick thing in and out. And despite his own injuries, he was really focused on getting his son safely out of the water. And the difference here is it wasn't just one bite. This shark came back repeatedly, which is even more terrifying than just being bitten once and then the shark leaving, which typically that's what happens. But now we have multiple shark attacks, and people are asking a lot of questions. By then, scientists were being asked to explain whether environmental conditions had changed. Some pointed to water temperatures that were unusually warm for that point in the season. Warm water can influence the movement of both sharks and their prey. Others noted the presence of bait fish close to the shore, which that can really be a problem. When there's bait fish near shore, that's where predators show up. And if they're really close and they're right near other humans, a shark can mistakenly bite a hand, a foot, thinking that it's bait fish. And there were more shark attacks. Less than 24 hours after Patrick Thornton's attack, another emergency call came from Hatteras Island. This time, it was the small village of Waves. At 4 p.m. on June 27th, an 18-year-old named John Cole was swimming in the shallow water with several other people when a shark attacked him. Despite the number of swimmers nearby, no one else was injured or attacked. And the attack, like most attacks, happened really quickly. The shark bit his right calf and his butt and both his hands. Now, the wounds to his hands suggest that he likely tried to defend himself during the attack. And that's natural. When you try to push a shark away or punch a shark, you are basically hitting it in the head, right near its mouth. A shark can easily bite you, not knowing exactly what it's doing. The National Park Service rangers, members of the Fire and Rescue Squad, and Dare County emergency personnel responded to the beach within minutes. And I will say that's been a kind of a great common theme here, too, that the response time and getting these people off the beach, attended to, into an ambulance or even airlifted happen really, really quickly. The teenager was treated at the scene before being airlifted to the hospital in critical condition. And by the following day, hospital officials reported that his condition had improved from critical to serious, which sounds bad still, but he lived. And again, big kudos to all of the personnel who responded to these attacks quickly, and all the people on the beach that were wrapping tourniquets and getting people out of the water and everything like that. But this was the second serious shark attack on Hatteras Island in as many days. And as you can see, again, we keep coming back to this. One shark attack makes the news. 2, it starts kind of making national news. 3, 4, now you have a frenzy, panic, and everything like that. And again, some of these attacks are happening very close together and in the same area. George Burgess, director of the Florida Program for Shark Research and curator of the International Shark Attack File, described this whole situation as a perfect storm of circumstances. More people were entering the water as summer vacations reached their peak. Water temperatures were favorable for sharks. Mentioned the bait fish, schools of bait fish were lingering closer to shore. Fishing activity added additional food cues to the environment. And often there was some rain too, and often murky surf reduced, underwater visibility for both sharks and swimmers. The phrase perfect storm did not mean scientists had solved the mystery as to why there were so many shark attacks and, so close proximity. It meant that there probably wasn't a single explanation, that it was maybe numerous things. But what everyone could agree on was this: the number of shark bites occurring along North Carolina's coast during that summer was extraordinary. And it didn't stop. 4 days after the attack near Waves, the series of shark bites continued farther south along the Outer Banks. Around noon on July 1st, Andrew Costello was swimming with his adult son at Ocracoke Island. Costello, a Massachusetts resident and former editor-in-chief of the Boston Herald, was in waist-deep water, approximately 25 to 30 feet offshore, directly in front of a National Park Service lifeguard stand. Witnesses estimated that the shark was approximately 6 to 7 feet long. The animal attacked Costello and pulled him underwater. As he fought to free himself, he suffered severe wounds to his rib cage, hip, lower leg, and, like we mentioned, both of his hands, just trying to get the shark off of him. Costello eventually escaped the shark and swam towards the shore. Lifeguards, beachgoers, and medical personnel helped bring him from the water and began treating his injuries on the beach. Some of the medical personnel who assisted him were off duty, while others happened to be vacationing nearby. As we mentioned, rescue people, just normal citizens, really on top of things. And if you've ever been at the beach and even when people see a shark, everybody's up and alert. Costello remained conscious as emergency crews stabilized his blood pressure, administered fluids, and controlled his breathing. And he was airlifted to the medical center in Greenville. Doctors described his injuries as major but non-lethal, thankfully. He would require multiple operations, but they expected him to survive, and he did. The following day, Costello released a statement saying that he felt fortunate to be alive, and he was thanking all the medical personnel and the people on the beach who had helped him. He's certainly lucky to be alive. But the 4th of July weekend was fast approaching. We now have 7 attacks. This is about to be the busiest period of the year for North Carolina coastal communities. And all these attacks have stretched from Brunswick County to the Outer Banks. Officials increased patrols and continued issuing safety guidance, while scientists repeatedly went on the news was like, hey, shark attacks are really rare, even though it's kind of triple what they normally are. And again, newspapers, television crews were all over the North Carolina beaches covering this story. It was, like, again, national news. And the average, again, 2.4 attacks a year. Now we're at 7, so triple of what it normally is. But if you really think about it, again, that many people in the water, and there's only, hundreds of miles of coast, millions of people in the water, only 7 bites. But try to tell that to a normal beachgoer. Like, I don't, being struck by lightning is, the odds of that are pretty low. But you don't go out during an electric storm, do you? So it's kind of like, yeah, the likelihood of you being attacked by a shark is very, very slim. But I don't want to be attacked by a shark, because if you get bit, with most of these attacks, you get bit once and they're gone. Now there's a couple of instances where there were multiple bites, and a shark is not going to just eat you. It's, you get bit, it nicks an artery, and that's, you bleed out or whatever the case there, and that's how most people die. But man, 7 doesn't sound like a lot in the grand scheme of things, but it also sounds like a ton compared to what it was the years before. And they're happening so close together, I think, was kind of the other thing that kind of sparked this frenzy. It was a wild time, and again, yeah, I remember this in the news. I went to the beach that year, and it was kind of like this sense of like, hey, I don't know if I want to get in the water. I think I'll just take my chances here on the beach here. I think I'll just look and see and be safe. But on July 4th, a 32-year-old Marine stationed at Camp Lejeune suffered injuries in the water near Surf City. Unlike the previous attacks, almost nothing was publicly reported about what happened in the ocean. The Marine's name was not released, and no detailed account established precisely where he'd been swimming, how far he was from the shore, like the other details that I've been giving you about the other accounts. Later that night, a friend drove this Marine to the Naval Hospital, Camp Lejeune. He was admitted at 10:41 p.m. with lacerations to his right hand and forearm. Now, that makes me believe that maybe he had been in the water at night, which is super dangerous. And I'll talk more about swimming at night in a little bit. But military officials described the injuries as resulting from a possible shark attack or a bite. They were not considered life-threatening, and the Marine was released from the hospital at 3:29 that morning. Surf City police said that they had not received a corresponding report of a shark attack during the holiday weekend. That absence of a police report, combined with the lack of witnesses or detailed public account, meant that the circumstances could not be reconstructed in the same certainty as the previous 7 encounters. To me, I can kind of infer again that maybe this individual was swimming at night, probably got nicked by a shark, went to the hospital, and, light injuries, nothing too crazy here. Contemporary news reports nevertheless counted the Marine's case as the 8th shark-related incident along the North Carolina coast that summer. The International Shark Attack Files final accounting would record, 8 confirmed unprovoked bites in North Carolina during 2015. All 8 had occurred within 24 days. Now, the word attack can create some confusion here, and I want to go back to these 8 were unprovoked attacks. This does not count when you're fishing for a shark and you get your hand stuck in its mouth, or anything stupid like I'm going to throw some bait in the water and get in a cage and, see what a shark does. Anything like that. This is basically you're in the water, you're swimming, and a shark bites you. But after that 8th and final attack, nothing else happened. Like, there were no other attacks. Everything kind of stopped. The beaches remained busy. Visitors returned to the water. Sharks continued moving along the coast, most of them unseen. There was no final capture of some Jaws-type predator. There was no scientist that stood before the cameras and announced that, we got our guy here. We found the culprit. The season just simply moved forward. It was just a crazy time. And it's funny. When I was a kid, I would swim in the ocean for hours at a time with total disregard of sharks. I lived in Wilmington, North Carolina for a few years in my 20s and went surfing every day, sometimes twice a day, and I never encountered a shark. I would see dolphins, but never a shark. And very rarely did I even think about a shark. There would be certain times, especially if I'm out there by myself and my imagination kind of takes over. I have my feet dangling as I'm sitting on the board. There'll be certain times I'm like, I'm just going to put my feet up. I'm going to get my feet out of the water. There's just kind of like this sense. And I think that's part of it, is this imagination. And there is a chance, a slim one, that you can get bit. And if you're out there in the water and your feet are dangling, it can be mistaken, hands and everything else. So, but I just remember just not really caring. And I talked about the Marine maybe going out at night. I would surf sometimes at sunset and at night, which is very, very stupid. It's a really dumb idea to do anything like that. But I really didn't think about sharks at all. And I'd seen Jaws and everything. But it's funny, now I'm in my late 40s and I have a young kid, and I'm like, I'm not going out there. I don't know if it's because of like Shark Week I've gotten more and more into sharks. I'm just like, I'm not going out there. And I don't want my kid to go out there when I was his age. That's all. I was literally in the water for hours at a time. And I know my producer Corey, he's a big beach person, and I can't wait for him to hear this episode and put it all together and get his perspective on it. And if he's one of those people that, kind of just hangs out in the ocean. I mean, I remember, going out with friends and just standing in chest deep water, waist deep water for hours, drinking and just chatting, not having a care in the world. And that's the thing. I mean, you see people in the water all the time, no attacks. But for whatever reason, this summer, during that small stretch of time, there were just so many attacks. And the thing is, no one died. That's the other thing, too. When you think about shark attacks, you're like, oh my gosh, someone's probably going to get killed. But 8 attacks, none of them, luckily, passed away. Now, there were some amputees, had to get some limbs cut, but luckily, no one passed away. And this episode would not be complete unless I had a fun fact for you. Did you know in 2013, the fossilized tooth of the megalodon was officially adopted as the state fossil? Did you even know we had an official state fossil? Well, now you do. The idea began as a project at Newport Middle School in Carteret County, where students evaluated several potential state fossils, including the sand dollar, starfish, coral, and sea urchins. They held a vote. The megalodon tooth won. So they took that and they proposed it. And eventually that went to the General Assembly and became state law. That's pretty cool. Also, another fun fact, did you know that Venice, Florida is considered the shark tooth capital of the world? Well, now you do. And it's funny, my son's really into dinosaurs right now. And there's not a ton of dinosaur fossils. What you see is, because a lot of the eastern coast was underwater, you get a lot of bones from fish, shark's tooth, stuff like that, which I find pretty fascinating. So, yeah, we have a state fossil. It's the megalodon tooth. Venice, Florida is the shark tooth capital of the world. Also, too, there's hundreds of vessels that have sunk off North Carolina, and it's earned the region the name the Graveyard of the Atlantic. These wrecks actually now function as artificial reefs, attracting fish and things like sand tiger sharks. Even the wreck of the USS Monitor, the famous Civil War ironclad laying roughly 16 miles off Cape Hatteras, has become what the NOAA described as a island of life. So these ships have become artificial reefs, and they've been very, very beneficial. There's a lot that you can go dive and see that I really want to go try, but I think it's fascinating. There are tons and tons of sunken vessels off the coast of North Carolina just because of the way the shorelines are. We talked about the Outer Banks, and it's really easy to run ashore. Blackbeard did it. So yeah, I thought I'd just give you some fun facts. I was really kind of fascinated because I did not know that we had a state fossil. But yeah, the megalodon. Act like you know. If there's one thing I hope you take away from this story, it's that the ocean deserves our respect. We are in the shark's domain, not the other way around. The summer of 2015 was an extraordinary series of events. But it also reminded us that sharks are not villains. They're just wild things in the ocean. They're an essential part of a healthy marine ecosystem and have been patrolling the Carolina coast for millions of years. Understanding them, respecting them, and learning how to safely share the water with them is far more valuable than simply fearing what's beneath the surface. That's why I love going trout fishing and even deep sea fishing, but I've never had the urge or need to fish for sharks. You'll never catch me doing them. I love sharks too much. But as always, thank you so much for spending the part of your day with me. I know this is a little different episode. It's not really about folklore or true crime or anything like that. I guess technically it's history. But it is Shark Week. I love Shark Week. This happened in North Carolina. This is the Southern Blueprint. Whether you've been listening since the very first episode or you're just discovering the show now, I truly appreciate you being here. Every download, every review, every share, every recommendation helps introduce more people to the incredible history, folklore, mysteries, and adventure that make the South such a fascinating place. A big thank you to my producer, Oriensko for helping me put the show together. I really want to get his take again on how he feels about sharks being in the ocean. And I'm asking you folks, tell me what you think. Have you ever had an encounter with a shark? Are you scared to go into the water? And as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, if you'd like to become part of the growing community, and if you want to talk to other, if you want to talk to me and other people about sharks and shark attacks and this episode, come join us over on Patreon. Once you sign up for Patreon, you'll get access to Discord. And it's our online platform where we're able to talk and interact with one another. And again, it's only $4 a month. It helps produce the show, get these episodes out. And it's just a great way to connect with other people who love the same things that you do. You can find the Patreon link in the episode description, or simply visit the Southern Blueprint on social media. I have the links in all my bios. Until next time, I'm Matt Swift, and this has been the Southern Blueprint Podcast. Take care, keep exploring, and I'll see you next episode.